By the age of 15, Mike had become the acknowledged leader of a small gang. It was he who developed the first case. The gang's first victim was a woman. She had no time to realize what was happening when three figures emerged from the bushes and immediately hit her on the head. The woman lost consciousness and the attackers took her purse and jewelry and fled. The attackers got away with almost $2,000. That's a fortune for teenagers. Skull, Mike, gave each of them $100 and took the rest, said Harry, one of the gang members. He said he needed to cover his tracks and he needed money to do that. The next night we went to the graveyard. Skull took a live rooster out of a bag and slaughtered it over the grave. We each took a sip of the warm blood. It was disgusting. I almost threw up. This became a tradition with the new gang. After each job, they would go to the cemetery and sacrifice a rooster, a cat, or a dog. Mike convinced his mates that it was these rituals that helped them get away with it. And indeed, for a long time the police did not suspect these particular teenagers. This went on for 2 years. During that time, Harry says his gang carried out about 30 attacks. But once they were almost caught, a man who had been hit on the head came to his senses too quickly and ran after the boys, screaming. A police patrol suddenly responded to his screams. Then the boys miraculously escaped arrest. They ran in different directions. And then Skull said that our patron from this side needs human blood, and not just any blood, but the life force of a virgin. Otherwise, we'd be quickly captured. So he suggested that we steal Natalie. She came from a dysfunctional family, did poorly at school, but dressed neatly and was cheerful and outgoing. Skull, Mike, gave them 100 pounds each and kept the rest, stated Harry, a member of the gang. He insisted that we cover our tracks, and to do so we needed money. The following evening we headed to the graveyard. Skull removed a live rooster from a bag and sacrificed it on the grave. Each of us drank a sip of the warm blood. It was repulsive. I almost vomited. It became a habit for the new gang. Following every job, they would visit the graveyard and sacrifice a rooster, cat, or dog. Mike persuaded his friends that these customs aided their escapes. For a lengthy period, the police did not have suspicions regarding these specific teenagers. This continued for 2 years. During this time, according to Harry, their group committed around 30 attacks. However, they had a close call once that a man who was struck on the head regained consciousness too soon and chased after them while screaming. A police patrol immediately responded to his cries. Fortunately, the boys managed to avoid arrest by running in various directions. And then Skull said that our client on this side requires human blood, specifically the life force of a virgin, or we'll get caught quickly. So, he proposed that we abduct Natalie. She comes from a troubled family, does poorly in her studies, but dresses smartly, and is also friendly and outgoing. Dan invited Natalie to the garage, Harry explained. I'm not sure what he said to her, but she left. He bound and silenced her in the garage before leaving her there until nightfall. Once it was dark, they all gathered, took Natalie and proceeded to the cemetery. She simply whimpered and wept, and then Mike picked a new burial site for the ceremony. No memorial was present, only a wooden cross. The men removed the cross and replaced it, but with its head down. They placed dark candles around the grave. Then they placed Natalie on top of the fresh grave and began to cut her up. They cut into her arms, legs, chest, and stomach and gathered her blood in a bronze bowl, likely once a church tool. They drank Natalie's blood from it. None of the boys could explain what occurred next. Harry claimed that Natalie abruptly stopped crying and, somehow pushing the gag out of her mouth, said in an unusual voice, "You don't even know where you're going. Who are you to try to control me?" After uttering this phrase, Mike stumbled backwards, slipped, and fell onto the fence of a nearby grave. He fell so hard that he hit the back of his head on a metal post of the fence and died instantly. The rest of the group ran away. Two of them were unable to see where they were going and jumped onto the road, where they were hit by a passing lorry. The crash was seen by two people from the neighborhood, but they couldn't recall the registration plate or the brand of the vehicle. The two teens lost their lives at the site of the accident. A different member of the gang attempted to flee to the residence but passed away on the doorstep. An investigation team discovered that he died due to heartbreak. The youngest gang member, Dan, made a dash into the forest. His remains, which were consumed by creatures and birds, were discovered 1 month after the occurrence. The reason for the person's death was inconclusive. The certificate revealed exhaustion as the cause, but in confidential discussions, professionals conceded it was something else, although they were unsure. Harry, the sole survivor, approached the authorities and confessed to what he and his peers had inflicted on the girl, urging them to incarcerate him alone. The young person was heard intently, but with some uncertainty. Nevertheless, an operational team was dispatched to the graveyard. The girl was discovered exactly where Harry had directed. Unfortunately, she was already deceased. Medical professionals were unable to identify the reason behind her death. Her coffin was closed during her funeral because the ceremonial experts and pathologists were unable to remove the expression from her face. She did not have any fatal injuries, and blood loss was ruled out by the medics. Nevertheless, the girl passed away, leaving a horrifying expression etched onto her face. Her coffin was closed during her funeral because the ceremonial experts and pathologists were unable to remove the expression from her face. Harry lasted much longer than the rest of the Satanist gang, but he didn't make it to trial. 2 days before the initial court date, he hung himself using a piece of bedsheet with no prior indication of his intentions. This couldn't be classified as murder, but the authorities dealt with the death as a suicide and closed the investigation without further looking into the mystery of the incident. And the person leading the investigation into Natalie's murder abruptly stated to a journalist, "I pray that those foolish individuals who were released will not be joining them." Thank you for watching this story. Please subscribe and explore the other stories I have gathered for you. You are sure to enjoy them. Also, if you would like to share your own story on our videos, please write about it in the comments. We will share the most fascinating stories. Goodbye, everyone. I will attempt to sleep now.